Well, hello again, guys, from here outside St James's Park, where it's cold and it's dark and it's August, and I'm wearing a gilet and hoodie combo, an outfit that would normally be reserved for Champions League match day 2. And I'm back on the Milburn stand steps as well, where you wouldn't really rule out, would you, in the coming weeks, poor Eddie Howe having to emulate Kevin Keegan all those years ago and addressing supporters if Alexander Isak is sold to Liverpool. I say poor Eddie Howe because, again, he's having to front up on questions off the pitch. There was a football match took place in there tonight, and we will get to talking about that in just a moment. I say just a moment, 5 or 10 minutes down the line, because first of all, we've got to address Alexander Isak, and it's Eddie who's had to front up again on the subject. And he did so well. He's always done well on this, like he did with us in South Korea last week when he sent that really strong message that Alexander Isak has to earn the right to train with the group. Well, this week, he hasn't earned that right after discussions with the manager, and that's what we'll get to in just a second. It's clear that he cannot train with the group. Now, my interpretation of what Eddie means by that and what he said, I'll get into in just a moment. But first of all, let's revisit those quotes, fresh, hot off the press tonight, from just inside the press room there behind us. Well, when asked for an update, Eddie said, "We've had discussions, and it's clear at the moment we can't have him involved with the group. I don't know how long that will be for. Discussions between us have to remain private, but it's clear I can't involve him with the team at the moment." Now, what did he mean by that? Some of my colleagues interpreted that as perhaps Isak refusing to play, refusing to train, and Eddie stopped short of saying that, but you could from that take the inference was that, yeah, Isak is refusing. Now, I don't believe that to be the case. My reading of it was more that, having spoken to him, it's clear that he cannot involve him in the group because his head, in his attitude, in his want, in his desire right now is elsewhere. It is not with Newcastle United, it is with Liverpool. He wants to play for Liverpool. He wants this move to go through. So from that, on the back of those discussions, Eddie has, for me, and again, this is my interpretation now, Eddie has thought and has said to the player and to the club and to his teammates, I cannot have him training and playing and being with you guys while he is making it clear to me he does not want to be here. That would be my take, rather than Isak point blank refusing to train or to play. Again, that is my interpretation. Let's go on with the quotes. "I want Alex to be playing today. I want him training tomorrow. We would love the player to be with us. Let me make that absolutely clear. There is no part of me does not want that outcome, but I don't see the current situation changing before Aston Villa next weekend. It's frustrating we're missing such an important part of our team." Again, by extension there, if you're reading between the lines, yes, if it was possible, Eddie Howe would love Alexander Isak to say to him, I'm okay, I can play, I can train, I want to train, I want to be part of the group. While that isn't the case, Eddie can't entertain having that negative influence around the group. He is so big on that spirit, on that togetherness, on that buy-in. This goes back to what he told me in the corridor in South Korea. You've got to earn the right to be the group. We are Newcastle United. His use of the word United was so telling. It was absolutely key during all of the quotes, all of the words he gave me last weekend in Seoul. That word United was as big and as powerful in anything. And if you've got a player who is detached from United, who risks creating a disunited, non-united, what's the right word? I don't know, we'll go with disunited. Well, he can't have him around the group. That was my interpretation of those words there tonight. Alexander Isak doesn't want to be at Newcastle. While that's the case, he might not be refusing to play, but Eddie's not going to play him, he's not going to have him as part of the team. Let's go on. Does he have a future at Newcastle? He is here, so of course he has a future at Newcastle. Certainly, from our perspective, everyone connected with the club, where are we? There's lots of words on this screen. We would love to see him back with the team, but the situation has to be right for that to happen. Again, my take on that, the situation has to be right for that to happen. That isn't Isak refusing, it is the situation, you just cannot entertain it at the moment. He is here and he's contracted to us, so as long as he's in that position, there is of course a chance he could play for Newcastle again. But I don't know what the future will hold. Whenever a manager commits to that phrase, I don't know what the future will hold, it is of course expressing that doubt and that absolute doubt that Isak will play for Newcastle again. The likelihood is from everything I've been exposed to the past week or past 2 weeks, here and in the Far East, on the record, off the record, in public and in private, is that the likelihood is that Alexander Isak has played his last game for Newcastle. I haven't changed my opinion on that. And again, I haven't changed my opinion on the two things that need to happen for Isak to join Liverpool. Liverpool need to come back with that acceptable offer, which I do think will be the case, but they'll only do that when they see Newcastle make progress on those incomings. A little bit on that in just a second. Again, going on with what Eddie's just said to us inside. Has he been disciplined by the club? He is training later than the rest of the squad. There have been discussions since the tour and everything that happened in between that. But in terms of disciplinary action, I don't think that has happened. Again, that would talk to Isak potentially saying, yes, I will train, I will play, but I don't want to be here. Now, if that's the case, he isn't refusing to train. He isn't refusing to play. So perhaps that speaks to Eddie admitting that there has been no disciplinary action. Now, again, I didn't know which way to interpret this last quote. I might do during the course of reading back over it. Could the club just tell him he's got to stay? Eddie was asked. It's not that straightforward, otherwise we would have done a long time ago. I don't think we're in a position to do that currently. Now, what is my reading of that? I'm not entirely convinced on this, but I think what that talks to is an acceptance that they've got a player who has made it clear that he wants to go. A player who believes that elsewhere he can go and earn the money he feels he deserves. The money he thought he was owed last summer when Amanda Staveley-Merger, Gudusi had spoken to him previously, promised him a new contract. Paul Mitchell came in, looked at the situation, not without reason, 4 years to run, £150,000-ish a week. No, you're not getting a new deal. But from that moment on, Isak's mind was set. He was unsettled. Was he unhappy? Well, he was unhappy to begin with. He started the season like an unhappy player. It was a miracle that Eddie Howe got him back in the building. He performed the way he did. But that unhappiness, that unsettledness, again, I'm using words, I'm not even sure as a journalist if they are words, that unsettledness, that remained, and that came back to the fore in the final weeks of the season after the Carabao Cup victory. And it certainly presented itself again in the summer when he communicated to the club, yes, I want to go. So, while that is the case, and while they know they've got that player who is unhappy and wants to be elsewhere, and they know they've got probably potentially that big offer coming in from Liverpool that I think they will eventually be able to negotiate a price that Newcastle and Liverpool do meet on. And while Newcastle are pursuing Pedro, Sesko, Liam Delap, and Mbeumo, all those forwards who would come in as that replacement type for Isak, while that is the case, I think everyone internally inside St James's Park there is working towards a scenario, an outcome where Isak is sold and they do get those other strikers in. I think that's what Eddie means by that. He then spoke about his group and he praised his players. I went all Geordie there, I didn't mean to. He praised his players for dealing with it, all this noise. He said, it is a distraction. But again, a really telling quote here. But I've been aware of a feeling around the group that there's something there that's not to the benefit of the group. That will be the noise. That will be the distraction. We spent 2 weeks out in the Far East there, and everything, all discussion was dominated on the record, or around the team hotel, around the training ground, was dominated by a guy who wasn't there. That's not healthy. Eddie's picked up on that. That's what he meant by that quote tonight. That is why you can't have Alexander Isak dropped all of a sudden in the middle of the group and asked to train with them at a key time in preparation for the new season. So that is my understanding, based on a hot-ish take, on a coldish night here coming out of the press room, but also based on everything else I know around the situation. I did a podcast for the Daily Mail this week and I was put on the spot. Will Alexander Isak be a Newcastle player come September the 1st? And I said no. I think he still will go to Liverpool, guys. I still think that is where it is heading. Evidenced by Newcastle's pursuit of those big players, those big names who could come in, and it might be palatable for you guys and for the club and for his teammates to replace Alex Isak, so to speak. But there will be no replacement. Replacement is a strange word we're using there. You can't replace Isak. He's irreplaceable. It's why Liverpool want him. It's why we've committed to that phrase. He's the best striker in the world. replacements, with an asterisk, players who come in and play instead of him. Now, where are Newcastle at on that? I did a bit of article on the Daily Mail yesterday. I'll put the link in the description below the line. There are two lists at play here, guys, when it comes to the Isak replacement. The Isak replacement, who they saw as the big money, big ticket player. Well, the names on that list, hello, they're slowly but surely scoring them off. So could it be the two names from what they thought was the replacement for Callum Wilson, that they are married together and they become the Isak Wilson replacement? I think we're in a situation now where that might just become the case. Yoane Wissa, we're expecting movement on that. Now, it was a story I broke yesterday. Brentford, not dissimilar to Newcastle's situation, they need that replacement in. They have made contact with Brentford over Dango Outara. Now, I'm told personal terms between Outara and Brentford will not be a problem. It's a case of, again, pretty much like Isak, the club's negotiating that deal. So if Outara to Brentford happens, I then think we'll have movement on Wissa at Newcastle. Newcastle are still keen, they're still so sweet on Wissa. He scored 19 Premier League goals last season. Crucially, he has communicated his desire, his want to be a Newcastle player. Not many have done that this summer. Anthony Langer did, it's why he's here. When Newcastle feel that, when Eddie feels that and Eddie hears that, he's prepared to be patient. That's why they're waiting on Wissa, coupled with the fact he's a very good player who scored 19 Premier League goals last season, 4 less than Alex Isak, in a team that wasn't as good as Newcastle. That's why they want him. I still think that will happen. But what other names are they exploring now from that second list? I wouldn't call it the B list because they're all great players. Well, one that I've heard, and I was quite strong on in the piece that I did, I know he's on the list and I know they like him, is Larson from Wolves. He scored 14 Premier League goals in his debut season last year. Now he's moved to Wolves, has been made permanent this summer for £23 million, but there is word that they could do a deal at the right price. That price might be too much for Newcastle, but certainly he is a dark horse one I would keep an eye on. Nicholas Jackson. Now, Nicholas Jackson, there was really strong reports yesterday. Newcastle are in talks, pushing ahead. That's not my information. There are some inside who like him, and I think among the hierarchy higher at the club, they might think that there is value to be had there if a deal could be done at around £50, £60 million, maybe. But I don't think on the football side of things, he's as high on their shortlist as perhaps some reports have made us believe. Ollie Watkins. Now, Newcastle, I don't think PIF would sign off on 29-year-old Watkins and 28-year-old Wissa, who both get a year older before the year is out. Does that make sense? Too many years in there. You know what I mean? They wouldn't want come this January a 30-year-old and a 29-year-old as the two strikers and haven't committed big money on them. So it would take big money to do Watkins in terms of the fee and the wages and the commitment with the contract. I think the football side of things with regards to recruitment, I think they might be okay with that. I think they would see that as a stopgap's the wrong word, but it would buy them time. And they're two very good players. Wissa and Watkins as a pair over a season would get more goals than Wilson and Isak. I think so anyway. I think that would be palatable to use that word if Isak was to go. But I don't think it's going to happen. That's my information at the moment. So if Wissa comes in, it will have to be one of those younger players. Larson is 25. Jackson is 23, 24. Could it be one of those two with Wissa? Well, I think it could be. There's the boy Sumo at Porto, who he wasn't necessarily on the list a week ago, 2 weeks ago. There's been reports today that he is, that they like him. I think they do like him. I've had nothing to deny that. There's been other names which have been shot down, the likes of Kolo Muani. Reports today are really strong. That's not the case. So, the boy at Porto, maybe. I haven't had anything massively strong back on that. But, yeah, I don't see them committing that massive amount of money on a young 21-year-old who was doing it for one season in the Portuguese league. That's my take on it. I've also heard as well that the numbers involved would be high. Not getting massive encouragement back on that yet, but do they like him? Are they aware of him? Is he on the list now? Well, yeah, he probably is. It might be one of those others who they do pursue. Ramos at PSG. He was there until there's less chance of that happening now. I'm going to have to consult my screen to get the others. There was that many. Rodrigo Muniz down at Fulham now, a £40 million deal, I believe, has been discussed 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago between intermediaries. Nothing club to club yet. They like him, they see improvement there. There's a decent profile to work with, but I do still think one or two of the other names I've mentioned are still ahead of him on the shortlist. The other option, of course, is someone from left field who I haven't mentioned, who I know nothing about, which is probably how Newcastle should do their business. And you guys are hoping They will do their business. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, what's the most likelihood going into next Saturday down at Aston Villa? It's at Newcastle, kick off the season with Anthony Gordon at centre forward. Another one of the options explored in the article below the line there. It won't be Alex Isak. That was my direct question to Eddie tonight. Do you see Isak potentially being involved at Aston Villa next Saturday? That was when he gave the answer. I would love him to be. That's my wish. But no, I don't. It won't be Isak. It probably won't be a new signing, even if Wissa does come in late next week. It's probably too late for him to get up to speed with the playbook and start down at Aston Villa. So it'll be Anthony Gordon back here tomorrow against Atletico Madrid. I think we'll see the front three who are going to start at Villa. Anthony Langer on the right, Anthony Gordon through the middle, Harvey Barnes on the left. They'll play against Atletico tomorrow. They'll play against Aston Villa next week. There you go. I think that's how it's going to play. I think it's almost certain that's how it's going to play out now. It's far from ideal. I do like that front three. Bags of pace, and if they're interchangeable, they could cause problems for any defence. Last year when Gordon was through the middle, it was a little bit more rigid. It didn't feel right. But I think this time with a Langer there, I think that front three could actually be quite exciting, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing them back here tomorrow. That's how it's going to play out for now. But absolutely, they are still pursuing with absolute priority those two strikers. Now, what does that tell you about the future of Alex Isak? It tells you, for me, that it's elsewhere. Now, finally, I said 5 to 10 minutes. Here we are, 15 later, and we finally got to talk about the football match, which you can see the green through there, which happened inside the stadium there. And a 2-2 draw with Espanol, relatively entertaining. A fair degree of incident as well for a pre-season game. I don't think it'll live long in the memory, but the one thing I will remember it for, and you guys too, is Aaron Ramsdale's penalty save. Now, of course, there was that assumption when Ramsdale came in that in the short term, this probably will be the case, short term at least, he'd be number 2 to Nick Pope. I didn't see number 2 playing out there tonight. I thought he looked like number 1. He didn't have a chance with either Espanol goal. First one is a rocket from 25 yards. It's bending away from him. From the minute it leaves the Espanol midfielder's boot. The second one, the equaliser 2 minutes from time, it's a flash header. There you go, flash header. I should have been, put me up front. Flash header, near post, Ramsdale is rooted. He can't do anything with that. In between that, he saves a penalty. He makes a brilliant save later on as well. It looks as if it's going to preserve that victory, and it would have been a nice victory for them too. You know, the results like this matter? Probably not, but I do think when you haven't won in 5 in pre-season, you just want that winning feeling. They didn't get it there tonight. They came very close to achieving it. Went 1 goal down to the wonder goal, then equalised through Matt Targett. Targett, what an eventful night. He gave away the ball for the opener. Scored the equaliser with a header, getting on the end of Louis Miley's cross. Louis Miley had a good game, his best of pre-season by far. He then gives away the penalty, which Ramsdale saves, and he plays the entire first half in midfield. Who would have thought we'd say that a week out from the new season? Matt Targett, the midfielder. But Targett, he did okay, Matt Targett. He did okay, but it was clear tonight with a changed team in parts, it's not really functioning. The balance of the team isn't there, the patterns, the partnership. Now, it wasn't the 11 who'll play for Aston Villa, so that's fine, that's okay. Probably be the same again tomorrow, but that will be a concern that Newcastle's start 11 for Villa haven't been put out tonight or tomorrow in the final pre-season games before the season opener as an 11. That would be a slight concern. It's been such a turbulent pre-season though, and the turbulence and the noise continues upwards, and it's going to go all the way up to Aston Villa next weekend based on what we've heard from Eddie there tonight. Now, the second goal, Jacob Murphy. Newcastle's young boys pressed well, actually. Second half, Sean Neve, Alfie Harrison between them. The press, Espanol, they make a right mess of playing out from the back. Falls to Jacob Murphy, puts it in the back of the net. Now Murphy, another goal, another goal involvement in last season. The assumption is now, again, that Anthony Langer will come in and start on the right. He probably will when the season starts. But as long as Murphy keeps on chipping in with what he's routinely and regularly chipped in and all of last season, what a great option he is to have, and don't rule him out getting himself back into the starting 11. So good goal that night for Jacob Murphy. Another one who was lively enough. I thought Louis Miley was good. Again, just touched on it there. Difficult pre-season for me, Louis Miley. Hasn't really caught the eye as much as he has done previously. Looked the need of those games, but he's had a little bit of a run now. He's had more training. Tonight, good quick feet, got about the park. Bruno Guimaraes, I think he's had very good summer, and I've seen most of it. I've seen every minute of it. He's been very good, Bruno. Got better as it's gone on. They're going to need him next week as well. Elsewhere, Young-Soo Park on the left. He's home down. I'm glad Eddie played him tonight because, again, he was the most exciting thing about Newcastle going forward. Like Son Heung-min, he's got that wonderful ability to stop, start and go again. Exciting, yeah. Keep him around the first team in the short term before sending them out on loan or putting them back within their age group. So there were positives tonight. On a whole, a bit disjointed, probably didn't really deserve to win. That doesn't matter, but there were individually some positives to be had. But the match, well, that will all be forgotten. The big headlines, the big takeaway from it is everything Eddie Howe said afterwards with regards to Alexander Isak. In the recap, in summary, my take is that, having spoken to him, Eddie realises, I can't play you, I can't have you anywhere near the group right now where you are mentally. They've obviously gone back over events of the past week as well, going to San Sebastian to train without Eddie knowing, pulling himself out of the trip, citing a thigh injury. By the way, which Eddie said tonight, there is no injury now. He's clear, he's fine, he's not playing because he's injured, he's okay, he's fit. He wants him to be around it, but he can't be, he cannot be right now. That word cannot for me was very instructive, very informative. Here I am, the journalist, breaking down the linguistics of it. That didn't scream to me refuse, that told to me where Isak's head is at, don't want him anywhere near it. So there you go. Tell me what you think below the line. It's open to interpretation. Of course it is. Clearly, Eddie is frustrated and he's not happy. It's not a good situation. Of course it isn't. It's going to dominate the news and the agenda going into the season and beyond. That's why they need a resolution. That's why they're going after those players. That's why they want the replacements, in inverted air quotes, in before Isak can go. But come back full circle. I still think he will. I still think he will go. I do. I think that's where all roads are headed. But if they can't get the replacements in, Liverpool do only offer another £5 or £10 million, it won't happen. That's when they'll have to address, no, you've got to come back in the group. And that option is still open. I was having conversations with folk today who were close to it. Said that is still, of course, that's still a play. Loads more to come, loads more to go. This story is far from over. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. My community tab is open. You can talk in there all through the week now. Go and have a look at it. Thank you so much. The support, the interaction in Korea, the comments were wonderful. They really were. I got back and my wife had a look at a few of them as well. And I know the, X, sometimes you post stuff on there. I've had disabled comments at times, folk are waiting just to say something nasty. And I realise there's a bit of angst out there at the moment. But below the line on YouTube, I love it. Over here, I really do. Thank you so much. Honestly, I really, really do appreciate it. Loads more to come. I'm back tomorrow. I've got to go home now and edit this video. The pubs are shut. I'll sit and have a beer in that kitchen, which you see on Sky Sports News and everywhere else, yeah. Stop talking, go home, edit, get the video up. Thank you so much, guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.